Miami came to Texas A&M. What is your preferred nomenclature for this game? Because we can go slugfest, slobber knocker, rock fight, knife fight, bar fight, field goal fest, punt fest, war of attrition. What are you into? Do you have something that came to mind as you were watching this game, as you were preparing for this show?
Wounded sumo, right? I don't know. That's pretty good, right? So there's a lot of heft to this game, right? You have the wounds of just like an inability of Miami to get anything going offensively, the wounds maybe emotionally and mentally from Texas A&M and the mistakes that they committed on offense. But even still, there was enough heft and aggression in the trenches going both directions, really.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm comfortable saying that Miami was the superior wounded sumo.
This was a demolition derby.
Sure.
It was 0-0 at half. Everybody online was posting the Frank Beamer. You know which one I mean?
Of course. Well, because I want to say who scored first in this one?
Miami scored first. In the third quarter.
I think we had the Mario pose. I don't know if it was after a blocked field. There was some moment where he had the pose, I believe. Mario had the Beamer pose.
It was 0-0 at half. It was 3-3 until late in the game when Miami scored a go-ahead touchdown with a little under 4 minutes left in the game. The wind played a huge factor in this game. Kickers were 2 of 6 in total. Miami's Carter Davis missed 3 field goals. He kicked one. I believe it was his second miss. And you and I were chatting about this one on Slack. He kicked the ball. It looked like it was on line, and then it got hit by the wind whipping off the plains. Just a wall of something that pushed it wide right. It was his second miss on the day. He also had a doink at some point or another. It was really rough for the kickers. I don't even blame them. It was really windy out there. And
high 20s is what I want to say. Who was doing this game? McDonough and McElroy, yeah. Yeah, that's what they were pointing to, like near 30-mile-an-hour winds, yeah.
And I thought McElroy, to his credit, just as I was thinking it, McDonough asks the question, hey, Greg, when you're playing quarterback in winds like this, what does it do to the deep ball? It was right after Carson Beck airmailed a ball to somebody, I forget who had a step on a Texas A&M defender. It was way over his head. He clearly didn't want to underthrow it, dealing with wind, and that's why it was just, way over the guy's head. And McElroy brought it up. He was like, look, it's really tough. It's different if you've got sustained winds in one direction, but that was not the case in Kyle Field. You had swirling winds that were all over the place. It kept changing direction. It kept intensifying as the game wore on. So this was a real challenge, and I think that's at least part of the reason why Carson Beck had 103 yards passing. They didn't even really resort to trying to stretch the field all that much through the air. Thankfully, they had Mark Fletcher, who had a terrific game on the ground for the Canes, and we could talk through that here.
Almost in spite of Shannon Dawson and the Miami offense brain trust. Like it feels very counter to like the ideal of Miami football under Mario Cristobal, which is just mashing teams and wearing them down and then maybe hitting in play action situations to a tight end, or in this case, Malachi Toney. They went away from Mark Fletcher, who I think was averaging, even before that long run that helped to ice things near the end and set up that score, he was averaging like 8 yards a carry, especially running between the tackles. And obviously they went to him in that moment. It was like 50, 60-yard run. But it was weird that Mark Fletcher went as long as he did without consistently getting the rock. I don't know.
I kind of feel like we nailed the preview for this one. And I
didn't fully, but continue.
Well, we had elements of this game right. I think we had the right idea. We both thought there'd be more points. There's no way anyone predicted 10-3.
Right.
I think you had 2017. I thought it would be quasi shootout, and I had it at 38-35, but we definitely figured on this one being a close physical game. And for my part, I called out big plays and who was going to get more of them, and Miami's offensive line. And both of those absolutely came into play. So if you look back at this game, A&M did have a 59-yard pass to Mario Craver and 4 other plays over 10 yards, but nothing over 20.
No.
Miami had the 56-yard run by Mark Fletcher in the fourth quarter, which set up the game-winning touchdown. For my money, that was kind of the turning point of the game, at least the latter half of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, 8 plays of more than 10 yards, 2 for more than 20. So Miami had a slight edge with respect to getting those big plays, those chunk plays that can turn field position on its head, give a team a certain amount of momentum. And on the Miami offensive line front, you can make a really strong case that Mark Fletcher was the difference in this one.
Sure.
He finished 17 for 172, averaged a shade over 10 per carry. He was the one who I thought gave the Canes the biggest lift on offense. Down the stretch, he was running hard. I mean, as I said, Carson Beck only threw for a shade over 100 yards. They were reliant to some extent on Mark Fletcher ripping off some of those big runs, putting them in position. And so this was not necessarily what we all had on the bingo card because despite the fact A&M's had a bit of a tendency to give up some big plays this year, both through the air and on the ground, Mark Fletcher, amid some of the other talent that this Canes roster has, it sometimes fades into the background, not for lack of performance, but just because there are a lot of other more exciting names to talk about when we do recaps like this. But Mark Fletcher did his part. His mom was going crazy in the stands, which was a cool.
Yeah, they were talking about how she was driving all over the country for his games. It was great.
What a detail from McDonough. Talk about a pro's pro, talking about how she drove from Miami to the Cal game last year.
To the Bay Area, yeah, for the Wild game against the Bears, yeah.
How long of a drive is that?
If you go straight through and you have cold brew that's likely illegal in most states, you could probably do it in a couple days and 50 some odd hours. I don't know.
Crazy, man.
You're leaving early. Okay. Here was the story of the game to me. The story of the game to me was the matchup between Miami's defensive line against what seemed to be a confident Texas A&M offensive line. And then what they were able to do to Marcel Reed, what they were able to do to affect the comfort levels of this Texas A&M offense. I did not love how this game was called by Colin Klein, new Kansas State head coach Colin Klein, by the way. Right. Didn't like the game plan in this one. And even so, when Marcel Reed just sort of could play with just right? Going down the field late in this game to set up a potential tying touchdown, aided, of course, by some mental lapses from the Miami defense. They made plays. And until that point, though, Ruben Bain was everywhere. Akeem Mesidor was everywhere. I thought the linebackers were sensational. Obviously, was it Bryce Fitzgerald, who had an interception early, I think on an overthrow, and then had the game-sealing interception.
Freshman,
I believe.
Yeah, freshman.
Yeah. Yep. So I just, on all three levels, this defense was an outstanding game plan for Miami. They suffocated and overwhelmed Texas A&M up front. A&M couldn't do anything on the ground. That to me was the difference, is play to play. Miami was just a wrecking ball up front and still had the opportunity to lose this game with Marcel Reed driving to tie this game. And it was a great couple plays, by the way, because there was a pass breakup in the end zone before.
Was the pass breakup targeting?
It was a hard hit. It was a hard hit with a very specific part of the crown. I don't know.
I was curious that nobody mentioned that.
Yeah.
Or why nobody mentioned that. And it kind of looked like targeting to me. It's not even to say that even if they call it, Texas A&M gets the points and they win the game or anything, or tie the game in this case. I thought that kind of looked like targeting to me, and nobody talked it. Just like everybody panned it. Nothing to see here. It's like, okay,
I'd have to watch move on again. Yeah.
I don't know. I would like to see more of it. I only watched it like 75 times on replay before we hit record.
Okay.
But that to me was a bit curious, but I would
like to see more in the way of creatively utilizing Marcel Reed's athleticism in that spot, right? That's where he's so elusive. That's where he's so great improvising, where you have to respect his feet and his athleticism to such a crazy degree that I was disappointed with. Not that they were asking him to pass it in that spot, but it seemed like a very plain way to try and score given his talent.
Completely agree. Agree. So let me throw this out there just to put a bow on what you're talking about with Miami's defensive front. 7 sacks, of Marcel Reed. Akeem Mesidor and Ruben Bain combined for 4.5 of those 7. They are ridiculous. I am crazy curious to see what that matchup looks like against Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fascinating when they play a little bit later on this year.
Especially with what Ohio State didn't look like up front on offense against Indiana.
That's right.
Basically their only true test after that Texas game in terms of playing a truly ferocious defense. All due respect to Penn State. They just were not that team this year. So yes, that's going to be an incredible match. And that's indoors. So we won't have to be dealing with any sort of wind issues. They're playing that one at Jerry World, correct?
Thank God. Oh, the wind. So the other thing that I would mention just while we're talking about the defense in this matchup, both units were awesome on first and second down.
Mm-hmm.
Miami had a total of 12 drives. A&M forced 12 third down tries. They averaged 1 per drive. They were only 3 of 12. So they weren't a great third down team in this one at all. A&M had 11 drives and 18 third down tries. They won 8 of 18. So both defenses were keeping their opponent off schedule, forcing some of those third down situations. And again, just like I said with the previous matchup, you force those third downs, it gives your offense an opportunity to get better field position, to get a little bit of momentum, if nothing more, get the defense off the field.
Yeah.
So, this was, I thought, a game that went a much different direction than we thought, even though we got some of the key elements right.
Yeah.
And the way that Miami sort of found itself in the second half, it screams that Miami found itself in the second half when you look at some of the advanced stats. 2.8 yards per play in the first half, 8.7 yards per play in the second half. So they've definitely figured something out. They are moving on. Again, your final here was a 10-3 thriller in College Station, Texas. Miami now, as we mentioned, is going to square off against Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. It is on New Year's Eve, 7 p.m. Eastern time. The early line is Ohio State -9.5 points, Dan.
Wow. That's a number.
That's
my final two thoughts on this one, by the way, is ultimately, I think I came away pretty, like, whatever the wind is, whatever the passing game is, whatever the arrhythmic nature of Carson Beck today was, Mario Cristobal made decisions in this one in short yardage situations, in go kick moments. You know, they had the short kick, I want to say it was like a 26-yard kick or whatever on 4th and goal, that sort of underscored his thought that this Texas A&M offense, for lack of a better term, wasn't shit, right? The decisions he made were like, if we pin them inside their 25, they're just not going to be able to drive the ball at all.
Yeah.
And so that was his calculus and his thinking in those decisions. It nearly came back to bite them on that final drive to tie it.
I messaged you. What's this defense right now? What are they doing? They're going to lose.
But I guess you can't argue with the final result, right?
No.
That Mario Cristobal made those decisions based on thinking and believing with his whole heart that Miami's defense could not be trounced. And for the most part, he was right. The other thing, to put a bow on this whole thing, is Notre Dame's not in this playoff because they lost to a team who scored 0 touchdowns in the playoff. Right? I wrote down, I did some like back of my envelope math.
Yeah.
Notre Dame
lost to both these teams.
I know they lost to both of these teams, but the Texas A&M game was at home. It was after week 1. You had the opportunity to not give up 41 points.
No, listen,
and that was a final Marcel Reed throw to the end zone. And this was a final Marcel Reed throw to the end zone. I just saw some parallels here. And there's your bowl. They're not your bowl game. There's your opening round playoff win for Miami. Super impressive. ACC is on to the quarters.
We both called it too. We both
did have Miami on the road. Yes,
we did. We did well on these.